So hello and welcome to this lecture. I will record probably two videos, one on the resource-based view and one on the capability-based view. And just to know some background about why exactly this lecture, the reason is very simple. I hold a class on strategic management, and as you know already, I'm talking very fast, and this year I decided to slow down. One of the ways to slow down is to have more of discussions and fewer of slides, which has an interesting consequence that we didn't manage to have all the lectures in class, and I decided to make a recording for my students. And our previous lecture was about the market-based view and about the 5 forces framework by Porter. The main idea of the market-based view is how to get to the sustainable competitive advantage by analyzing the market, finding the correct niche, finding the good strategy regarding substitutes, threat of entry, rivalry among competitors, and bargaining power of suppliers and buyers, or over suppliers and buyers. And as you know, we have a lot of drivers. If you want me to record the lecture on market-based view, please let me know and in the comment section, and I can record one more lecture maybe for you in future. And in today's lecture, we're going to talk about the second part of this, of the strategy analysis, strategy preparation. Previously, we used to have a big debate about market-based view and resource-based view and what is actually needed to achieve sustained or sustainable competitive advantage. And people from the market-based view field, they say that you can achieve sustainable competitive advantage if you understand your market, your industry correctly, and if you know about the competition and you know all the drivers that can heat up the competition or slow it down. And there was another pool of researchers, those who said it's about the resources, it's not about the market. It depends on what kind of resources you possess. There was a big debate, what is more important, and actually we agreed in science that you need both. You need to understand your market, you need to understand the industry, you need to understand the competition. It will definitely help you develop a sustained competitive advantage. At the same time, it is not possible if you don't know your resources and your capabilities. And that is why usually if we develop the strategy, we need to do both. We need to analyze the opportunities on the markets and the threat on the markets, and we also need to understand your strengths and weaknesses. That's why if you work with the SWOT analysis, for the strengths and weaknesses, these two letters, you need to apply the resource-based view and the capability-based view. And for the opportunities and threats, you apply the market-based view. That is why if you want to apply this method, watch my video about how to do it, but you will need to combine the knowledge about the 5 forces framework, or 5+2 forces, and also what are the resources. And here I usually give my students a simple task. I ask them a question: what would you do if I would be an investor and I would have given you as investor, as investment, 25,000 euros, then I would give you an office room with intranet and PCs, let's say somewhere in Innsbruck, and I would give you also a car. So what would you do with these resources? And then I usually have a discussion, so hit the post button if you want to come up with your decision. You can write your solution in the comment section below. And what I can tell you is I'm holding this class for many years, and each year we come up with new and new ideas. I have already probably about 5 or 6 dozens of different ideas, ranging from I would rent the apartment to somebody else, I would invest money into equipment, I would use the car for food delivery services, for taxi drivers, and so on. And up to the very interesting option that one of the students said, that he would have invested 25,000 euros in a business suit and shoes and other stuff in his Outlook, because if you apply for a job, they see how you're dressed and they would offer you a higher salary. And he said that if I'm dressed like this, very interesting view, but it's legitimate, I would get a higher salary, and the difference in salary would be at least 25,000 euros plus a year. And it means he will be able within 1 year to pay me back my investment and continue working and getting high salary. And what I usually want to achieve with this exercise is to collect different ideas and to show students that they are all students in the same class with more or less the same knowledge of strategic management and more or less similar resources, not the same, but very similar resources. And they come up with completely different ideas, which implies that there are two important things. The first one, resources do matter. If you don't have them, you will not have come to these ideas what you can do, what kind of business you can start, and what in which way you could earn the money. At the same time, we see that the capability matter is actually what you do with the resources. And that is why we have this lecture on the resource-based view and capability-based view. So what are the resources good for, and why do we need them? What kind of resources we have? But also, what can we do with these resources? And this is mostly about the capability. And as you see, the need for better basement strategy than resources needed. So it's not only about the resources, it's also about your capabilities or what you do with the resources. If we look at the definitions, then Prachelt and Hamel in 1991 in their paper, they said that focusing on the end product is wrong. And they gave a lot of examples where firms, when they focused on their products, they failed, or many firms failed or became not as successful they could have become. Focus on the market is also wrong because the markets are dynamic and the markets are for everybody, so everybody can join them. And you know it from the market-based view and from the 5 forces framework. You have seen how easy it is to enter the market and what are the drivers that can make entering the market easier for you or for your competitors. They said that firms should actually focus on what they can do better than the others, and this doing is called the capability. So an organization capability is actually what firms can do with their resources. If you talk about money, it's just a resource, but what will you do with this money? And my students usually give a lot of examples what they would do with the money, and you can see already that they would have come to completely different results. They would have earned more or less money just based on how they would use this 25,000 euros. Investing to business suite or investing into another business like opening food delivery services, or registering a limited or GmbH in Austria and Germany, which exactly requires 25,000 euros, would also help you to have a firm and with this firm achieve better results than if you are just a freelancer without a firm. If we talk about the resources, they are the productive assets owned by the firm. So it's really about the tangible, intangible assets that you have within your firm, and it's actually something you possess. If we talk about the capabilities, it is about what we can do or what firms can do with the resources. They represent the firm's capacity to deploy resources for a desired end result. As you know, many firms can have different resources, and some of them with very similar or almost equal resources become more or less successful. So it's not about having something, it's about what you can do with what you have. We also have the word competence or competency, and it has two meanings. For me and for most researchers, it would be the same as a capability. That's why if you hear that a company has a capability in something, it is the same as the company has a competence in something. But there is also the second meaning, which means the quality of state of being functionally adequate, of having sufficient knowledge, strength, and skill. It means being competent in something, I'm able to do something. It's more about the potential, not what you actually do, but what you have potential for. They're a bit overlapping, but anyway, you hopefully see the difference. And finally, as we also use the term capacity, like observative capacities, which is actually a capability, but it's called the capacity, but we need to know what is the capacity. It is the power to hold, receive, or accommodate. So it's like more about the volume, about the amount of something. So if we talk about the capacities, usually we talk about your time capacity. It means whether you have time. Time management would be a skill, would be a competence. But in this event, we talk about, in the event of capacity, really about amount, how much time you have. What are the volumes of your storage facility? And then I usually show my students this picture and I ask them to define on this picture what kind of resources they see, what could be the competencies or the capabilities, and what are the capacities. And you can hit the pause button and write your comments, or write it down for you, or write in the comment section what you see on this picture. But if we talk about the resources, you see human resources, you see personnel, you see also equipment, tangible resources, you see the surgery table, you see the plugs for the power supply. You can also see intangible resources, like knowledge of those people whom you see on the picture. It is there. But you can also see the capabilities, and the capability would be surgery making capability. It means what they can do with the resources. Just having a table for surgery doesn't mean that you're really conducting or making surgery on the table. And having the capability of this is different from a resource. It is a combination of your resource and what you do with a resource. And if we talk about the capacity would be, for instance, the number of patients you can handle during a day, or the number of beds that you can install in this room, or the number of people who can enter and exit this room. So more or less, the capacity would be more or less about the volume, about the amount of something that happens on this picture. Try it out. You can take any other picture and try to apply this knowledge there. What we know is we need to identify resources. We need to know what we have in order to know what kind of capabilities we can develop. And we usually speak about the 3 types of resources, at least based on the book Foundations of Strategy by Grant and Jordan. Grant and Jordan said that we have 3 types of resources: the tangible, the intangible, and the human resources. And we're going to talk about them in the next slide. But for now, we have the resources based on which we can develop organizational capability. It means we can do something with these resources. You may not. And in this event, you will not be so successful as the firms who develop a capability. And then combined with the industry key success factors, this is actually from the market-based view, analyzing the industry or the market and what is the key to be successful there, what is the key to get a higher margin on whatever you produce or offer. Then you can develop a good strategy. It means for a good strategy, you need both. You need the resource-based view, somewhere here. You don't see the mouse, I see already, but in the bottom right corner, the resources. Then we have the organizational capabilities, what you can develop based on these resources. And you need to understand your market, which is industry key success factors. And then you can develop something that we call competitive advantage. It means you can be better than the others. And if you want to have sustained competitive advantage, then you need to have very specific resources, at least based on Barney, who wrote a paper in 1991. And this paper is actually the main idea of the resource-based view, the key paper. It is based on thoughts of other professors of Rummold and Wernerfeld, who also wrote about the resources of a firm, but Barney brought it all together, and he said that if you want to have sustained competitive advantage, not just immediate competitive advantage, but long-term perspective, then the resources should be of a specific type. And he suggested these should be the resources of the VRIN type: valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable. Valuable, because if the resources have no value, probably you cannot create any value with them. Rare, because if they are not rare, other people can, or other firms can get to these resources, and then you will not have competitive advantage. They will have the same level of competitive advantage, or they will be just competitors and you will not have an advantage. Inimitable, because some resources can be imitated. If you can imitate the resource, then you cannot develop a sustained competitive advantage. And non-substitutable. If you can substitute a resource by another one, then you can achieve probably very similar results in just a different way. So according to Barney, if you want to have sustained competitive advantage, you have to have very specific resources. So not every resource will help. You need many of them for different capabilities, but if you want to have sustained competitive advantage, something different that allows you to be competitive in a long-term perspective and will force your competitors to run after you all the time, you should have something that is of value and that the others don't have, cannot imitate, and cannot substitute. And this is actually the good foundation for the good strategy. Now, about the resources and where to find them. The first type of resource that Grant and Jordan mention are the tangible resources. And here we talk about financial and physical resources. The financial resources can be cash, security, or your borrowing capacity. And the physical resources can be plant, equipment, land, mineral reserves, and so on. So different things can be your tangible resources. And if you want to find out where are or what kind of tangible resources a firm possesses, it's actually pretty simple. You just have to look at the balance of payments. You just have to look at the booking, how do we call it? Bookkeeping of the firm, just to see there what kind of tangible resources a firm possesses, because they are exactly where you can find them. You find them in the documents of the firm, in the balance sheet, where you have the assets and liabilities, and your assets are actually your tangible resources. They are listed there. And here I have a very nice picture that I found online by the Daily Snug. Is why the resources are not sufficient, especially the tangible resources. With the intangible and human resources, it's already a bit interesting because it overlaps with the competence or capability-based view. Here you can see that actually having the resources may not be successful. Actually, the person on the picture needs only one ladder, but if the person applies the ladders in the wrong way, then he or she would need probably dozens of them in order to look behind the wall, and actually one will be successful if you find a way how to apply it correctly. So again, here the definition about the tangible resources, easiest to identify and evaluate. And actually, the tangible resources are easy to identify, easy to evaluate, but they don't tell you much about the success of the company. And this is a very interesting point of view, especially for those who come from the capability-based view. The next type of resources, according to Grant and Jordan, are the intangible resources, and these are technology, reputation, culture. Because many companies, they possess technology, they possess patents, copyrights, trade secrets. This is actually something that brings them money. It is more about what they can do with the resources and what kind of knowledge they have. So these are still not the capabilities, but already very close. Because having the patent, it means you have technology, you have knowledge about it, doesn't mean you will apply it. But anyway, it's already different from the tangible resources, from having equipment. And this is one of the reasons why Jay Barney, he's, I think, a big proponent of the resource-based view, and he even calls it resource-based theory. But up to now, researchers didn't take it as a theory. We still use it as a view. We still see a lot of inconsequences and a lot of issues with this theory. That is why it is still a view. If you want to know more about it, you can watch my video about what theory is and what theory is not. And then I give this example of Jay Barney and what is a view and what is a theory, what are the differences between the two concepts. Reputation is important. It is not on your balance sheet, but it is something important, your brand. What is the brand value, and the culture, organizational culture. I used to work with an interesting manager who used to be in I don't know what I'm allowed to name the films, but anyway, there are, I probably can do it. Lidl in Germany and Kaufland, they have the same owner, the organizations, both networks who mostly sell just normal products, food mostly, but also some additional products. They have the same owner, but very different culture. And I remember how he explained what is the difference and how many people wanted to switch from one to another one. So usually from Lidl to Kaufland, because Kaufland had a better culture. I know that in the last years, Lidl worked a lot on the organizational culture. They wanted to change it because they saw that people were much more exhausted and they wanted to have something different. And I think they started approximating. But they had different management, different cultures, very different effects of their working, very different capabilities, although they actually have the same core, the same owner and the same idea. They wanted to go to different niches, but actually what happened there, they created completely different organizations. How can you find out what are the intangible resources? This becomes already tricky. The first thing what you can talk about is actually look for the patents, and if firms have something like copyrights, patents, trade secrets, they list them somewhere, and you can find out what kind of patents the organization has. Then you can already approximate understanding of the intangible resources of the organization. The other thing is, of course, that the balance sheet of a company doesn't show you the intangible resources. Maybe you can find the patents there. I'm not sure. I'm not good in bookkeeping, but I'm pretty sure you will not find the organizational culture there and the reputation. What is the value of the brand and so on. And one of the ways to understand it is actually to look at the stock market valuations, because usually the share prices, they reflect the strength of organization and also their intangible resources indirectly, because they usually reflect all the resources at once. But you cannot, for instance, define precisely what is the value of the relationships that the company developed. But you can see that relationships are good if the prices are growing and there are more and more contracts, mergers and acquisitions, processes happening within the organization and so on. And like reputation, technology is an intangible asset, and the value is also not evident, so it's very hard to understand what it is. The intellectual property is there, and many companies possess thousands of patents that they don't use. So it means they have technology, maybe, but it doesn't mean that they really use it. So again, we have a big gap between the resources and capabilities, what actually firms do with them. And finally, the third type of resources are the human resources. And why do we need them? First of all, you cannot find them because a company doesn't owe its employees, so they are not they are kind of asset, but they are not on the balance sheet because it's not slavery. You cannot say that you possess people. You don't possess them. You offer them a vacancy and they apply for the job and they work or not work there. But people have something what is very important for the company and later for the capabilities. They have skills, they have know-how, they have capacity for communication, collaboration, and some are good communicator and collaborator, which helps organization, and some are single players, individual players who don't want to play as a team, which may have very negative impact on the organization. And motivation is also there. You cannot find motivation in the balance sheet, but motivation is crucial, and in the next lecture, the one on capability, we're going to talk about why motivation is important. But it's fixed almost nowhere. And the way how to evaluate them is actually like playing chess. It is all within the head of an individual who is a good player and who is a bad player, because the game is the same. And the resources are the same for everybody. You have the same pawns, you have the same, the other figures that you have, the knights and the bishops, but some are better and some are worse. It will depend, of course, on skill and know-how and on motivation to play the game. Here, on the example of chess, we cannot find the capacity to communicate and collaborate because it's not a collaborative game. So the human resources are important because they actually explain why some organizations are more successful than the others. And we need to include them as resources because they are there, and actually if you sign a contract, it's a long-term contract. It means people do not come and go. It's not like the weather, you have the rain and next day you don't have it. They come for years, and especially in Europe, especially in Austria and Germany, usually these are permanent contracts or long-term contracts. It means you can count on employees and you have to include them into your resources. They are important and they are more or less stable. In some countries like the US, the UK, Canada, Denmark, it's easier to fire employees, but still most people who come to work in firms in these countries, they also have like long-term contracts in mind. At least they would plan to come there not for one day but for a longer time. That's why we need to include them as a separate type of resources. How can we understand what it is? And many firms, or actually almost all firms, have their human resource department and they do assessment of the skills. They know exactly what kind of people they need and they know what kind of people they have who applied there, how many engineers, how many managers, they know how many researchers they have there, what kind of knowledge they have. So theoretically, some of this knowledge can be captured. It's not easily accessible from outside, but it's accessible from inside, so you can make an evaluation. For the cybersecurity, cyber criminals, when they attack something, and we had a very interesting conversation with Professor Pogrebna from the University of Sydney. And she said, if you make an attack as an adversary, then usually you look through the vacancies that are being announced, and then you see what kind of skills they offer. Or what kind of skills they're looking for. Then they can find out what kind of systems the organization is using and what kind of employees are lacking there. And they can find a way to apply social engineering or technical breach into your firm in order to harm you. It means as the adversaries can find out the information about the skills, know-how, and the motivation, the same can do you. And of course, there are also websites from employees who anonymously leave feedback about the organization or not anonymously leave feedback, so you can evaluate what is the level of motivation within the organization, how are the skill levels, know-how levels, and so on. And finally, what is important for organizations, they have to make some competency modeling. It means they have to identify the set of skills that they need to succeed. If you are in strategy or if you are in operations, whatever you do, you need people with certain skills. You need to know who can help you achieve your strategy, who can help you implement it. And if your strategy is to go to software business, then of course you need to have people who will code, understand coding, and so on. It's very hard to get into software business if you have no idea and no personnel who is able to work with software. Will it be your programmers or will you outsource it? But anyway, in the firm, you should have certain competencies in order to develop this type of business and to get to this market niche. So strategy is, of course, rooted into competency modeling, and those who are strategists, they have a good understanding about what these resources are. And actually, that was it, because then we're going to move to capabilities, and for capabilities, I'm going to make the second recording. See you in the next video.